My name is Hannah Collins. I was 27 years old when the one thing I had been working toward for nearly 5 years was snatched out from under me. And the worst part? It wasn't fate. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't bureaucracy or some random cruel twist of life. It was my sister. From the moment I graduated college, I had one goal: to work overseas. I majored in international relations, took internships that paid almost nothing, and spent nights at my laptop learning languages, building connections, and writing applications. Everyone in my family knew it was what I wanted most. My mother used to joke that my suitcase was always half-packed in my mind. My father called me his little diplomat. But my sister, Madison, never joked about it. She rolled her eyes. She said things like, "So you just want to run away from all of us? Or what's so wrong with staying here like a normal person?" She said it like I was selfish for wanting something bigger. The truth is, Madison and I had always been different. She was 2 years older, loud where I was quiet, impulsive where I was careful. She had dropped out of community college after a year and bounced between jobs: bartending, retail, receptionist work. Nothing stuck. She was smart, but restless, like she couldn't stand still long enough to build a life. And I think, deep down, she hated that I had a plan. By the fall of that year, I had finally made it through every hoop, every stage of the process for an overseas program I had dreamed of since I was 22. The final interview was set, Friday morning, 10 a.m., at their U.S. headquarters. If I passed, I would be offered a position in their Europe office, a role that could change everything. I had my flight booked, my outfit chosen, my notes ready, and on Thursday night, I laid everything out neatly on my bed, the way a child lays out clothes for the first day of school. My black blazer, pressed slacks, the heels that didn't pinch too much, the leather-bound folder holding extra copies of my resume. And on top of it all, my passport, required for final verification of eligibility. That passport was more than just an ID. It was my lifeline, my ticket to the life I had built in my head 100 times. I went to bed early, though I tossed and turned with nerves. I must have checked my bag 3 times before finally drifting to sleep. When I woke up, something felt wrong. The blazer was still on the chair. The folder was still there. My heels, waiting by the door. But the passport, the slim navy booklet that was supposed to be right on top, was gone. At first, I thought maybe I'd moved it. Maybe in my sleep-deprived haze I'd tucked it into my purse. I tore through the bag, the desk, the nightstand. Nothing. Panic surged hot and heavy through my chest. I dropped to my knees, pulling open drawers, flipping over cushions, even checking under the bed. Nothing. And then, as I stood in the middle of my room with my chest heaving, my door creaked. Madison leaned against the frame, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone too casual. "My passport," I gasped. "It's gone." Her lips curved just slightly, not a smile, but not sympathy either. Something colder. "Maybe you misplaced it." "No," I snapped. "I left it right here. It's not gone unless someone took it." She shrugged, glancing at her nails. "Why would anyone take your passport?" I stared at her, my stomach twisting with a realization I didn't want to name. But it was there, simmering under my skin. "You didn't," I whispered. She looked up then, and in her eyes I saw it, the flicker of something guilty, something defiant. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was too smooth. I stepped forward, my pulse hammering. "Madison, give it back." Her arms tightened across her chest. "You think you're so much better than me, Hannah. With your fancy plans and your dream job and your perfect little resume. You don't even care what it does to us, what it does to Mom and Dad, if you just run off across the world." My mouth went dry. "This isn't about them. This is about you. You took it." Her jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought she might reach into her pocket, pull it out, laugh it off like a prank. But she didn't. She just shook her head slowly. "Maybe the universe is trying to tell you something. Maybe you're not meant to go." I felt like the air had been punched out of me. I had an hour before my interview. An hour to find the one document that stood between me and everything I had worked for. And the one person standing in my way was my own sister. The moment Madison walked away from my doorway, I collapsed onto the floor, hands shaking so violently I could barely grip my phone. I had less than an hour before the interview. Less than an hour to either find my passport or accept that my dream was slipping through my fingers because of the one person who was supposed to stand beside me. I dialed Madison's name, even though she was just upstairs. She didn't answer. I ran to her room, pounding on the door so hard the wood rattled. "Madison, open the door. I don't have time for this." I heard movement, a creak on the floorboards, and then silence. "Please," I begged, my voice breaking. "I worked for this for 5 years. Just give it back. You don't have to do this." The knob stayed locked, her silence like a wall I couldn't climb. I wanted to kick the door in, scream, rip the hinges off. But instead I backed away, my chest heaving, tears spilling down my cheeks. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart.
Not now.
I tore through the house, checking every surface, every drawer, every pocket of every jacket. I checked the kitchen, the bathroom, even the laundry basket. Nothing. The clock ticked down. 45 minutes.
35.
I called the program coordinator, praying for some miracle. "This is Hannah Collins," I stammered. "I'm scheduled for an interview at 10 a.m. My passport, it's gone. Is there any way I can bring a copy?" Her voice was kind but firm. "I'm so sorry, Hannah. The final stage requires the original passport. Without it, we can't proceed. Can you reschedule?" My heart plummeted. "Please, is there any way? I understand how much this means, but we can't make exceptions. If you can't present it today, you'll need to wait for the next cycle." Next cycle? 6 months. 6 months when everything I'd worked for was lined up now. I hung up, my hand trembling so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. 6 months. I couldn't breathe. By the time 10 a.m. came and went, I was still on the floor of my bedroom, my dreams scattered like shards of glass around me. The blazer, the folder, the carefully chosen shoes, they mocked me from the corner of the room, relics of a plan that had collapsed overnight. At noon, Madison finally came downstairs. She was dressed in sweatpants, sipping coffee like it was any other day. When her eyes met mine, there wasn't even a flicker of remorse. "You missed it?" she asked, her voice flat. I stood, my body trembling with rage. "Where is it?" She shrugged. "What does it matter now? The interview's over." I stared at her, disbelief flooding me. "How could you do this to me? I'm your sister." Her lip curled. "That's exactly the point. You were about to leave me behind. You think I didn't hear Mom bragging about you every chance she got? Dad calling you his little diplomat? Do you know what it's like to always be the disappointment? To never be the one they're proud of?" Tears burned my eyes. "That doesn't give you the right to destroy me." Her gaze hardened. "Maybe you needed to be reminded that you're not the only one in this family who matters." For a long, terrible moment, I just stared at her. This wasn't jealousy in the petty sense. This was deeper, darker. A festering wound I hadn't seen, one that had finally exploded. "You're sick," I whispered. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't deny it. She just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there with nothing but the echo of her betrayal. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my passport still missing, my future shattered. I thought about reporting it stolen, but the damage was already done. Even if I had a replacement in a few weeks, the interview window was gone. The betrayal pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't push off. Not just because she had taken my passport, but because she had taken it knowing what it meant. She had wanted to hurt me, and she had succeeded. I didn't eat. I barely spoke. When my parents called, I told them I wasn't feeling well, because how could I tell them the truth? How could I make them see that their daughters weren't just different? They were enemies now. But 2 days later, the truth came crashing down harder than I ever expected. I was walking past Madison's room when I saw it. Her purse, left carelessly on the floor, half-zipped. And peeking out from the side was the navy blue edge of my passport. My heart stopped. I picked it up with trembling hands, flipping it open, and there it was. My picture. My name. My lifeline, hidden like a toy in her bag. Something inside me snapped. I stormed into the kitchen where she was lounging with her phone. "You had it the whole time," I screamed, slamming the passport onto the table. Her eyes widened, just for a second, before narrowing again. "So what if I did?" "So what?" My voice cracked. "Do you even realize what you've done? I lost everything because of you. My chance. My future." She stood slowly, her face twisted with bitterness. "Oh, poor Hannah. Always the victim. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with leaving, you'd see the people standing right in front of you." I could barely breathe. "You didn't just ruin my chance, Madison. You ruined me." For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Doubt. Maybe even regret. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by that same stubborn defiance. And that's when I realized the truth. She hadn't stolen my passport because she wanted it. She had stolen it because she wanted me to fail. And she had succeeded. That night, as I clutched the passport in my hands, I swore to myself it wouldn't end like this. I didn't know how or when, but I would find a way to rise again. And when I did, Madison would see that no matter how hard she tried to break me, she couldn't win. Not forever. The first few days after I found my passport hidden in Madison's purse were a blur of grief and rage. I carried it with me everywhere, as if gripping that slim booklet could anchor me to the dream she had ripped away. I couldn't even look at her without feeling my chest tighten. Every time I replayed her words in my head, "Maybe you're not meant to go," it made my skin crawl. Who gave her the right to decide the shape of my future? Who gave her permission to crush something I had spent years building? By the end of the week, I couldn't keep the truth from my parents anymore. I called them one evening, my voice trembling. "I missed the interview," I confessed. "I couldn't go." My mom's voice sharpened. "What do you mean you couldn't go? Hannah, you've been preparing for this for years." I took a shaky breath. Because Madison took my passport. There was silence on the other end, long and heavy. Then my father's voice, low and stunned. "She what?" "She hid it. The night before. I searched everywhere, but it was in her purse the whole time. By the time I found it, the interview was over." My mother gasped. "Oh my God, Hannah." I didn't want to believe it either. I whispered, tears burning my eyes. But she looked me in the face and said maybe I wasn't meant to go. My father's tone hardened. "Where is she?" "In her room," I muttered bitterly. Like nothing happened. The silence stretched again. Then my mom whispered, "We'll come by tomorrow." When they showed up, Madison was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. My parents walked in, their faces pale with shock and fury. "Madison," my dad said sharply. "Where's Hannah's passport?" She blinked up at him, feigning confusion. "What?" "Don't lie to us," my mom snapped, her voice shaking. "Hannah told us everything." Madison's mask slipped then. Her eyes narrowed. "So she ran to you?"
Of course she did.
Miss Perfect, always painting herself as the victim. "Victim?" I burst out, unable to hold back. "You sabotaged me. You stole from me." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. "You think it's easy being your sister? Always hearing about how smart you are, how focused, how successful. Do you have any idea what it's like to be compared to you every second of my life?" My father's face darkened. "So, you destroy her chance out of spite?" "Madison, that was her future." Madison stood abruptly, her eyes flashing. "Oh, spare me the lectures. Maybe if you cared half as much about me as you do about her, I wouldn't have done it." The room went still. My mom's hand trembled as she pressed it to her mouth. I whispered, "You didn't just hurt me, Madison. You showed me who you are." She stared at me, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw something crack in her expression, guilt, shame, maybe even fear. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the same cold defiance. "I don't regret it," she said flatly. "Not one bit." The weeks that followed were heavy with tension. My parents tried to reason with her, to demand an apology, to make her see the damage she had caused. But she dug in deeper, spinning herself as the ignored daughter, the one who had been forced into my shadow. And me? I went numb. I woke up every day with the hollow ache of knowing my dream job overseas was gone, at least for now. I tried to bury myself in work, volunteering for projects at the library, pretending I didn't hear the whispers of sympathy from coworkers who knew how hard I had prepared. But every night, lying in bed, the anger clawed back up. It wasn't just that she had taken my passport. It was that she had taken my power, my hope. She had proven she could wound me in the most intimate way possible. And that terrified me. One Saturday, while cleaning, I found myself in the garage, holding the passport again. I flipped it open, staring at my own face on the photo page. My eyes looked so determined there, so sure of the future. "I won't let you win," I whispered. Because the longer I stayed stuck in the rubble of what she had done, the more she won. And I refused to give her that satisfaction. That night, I wrote an email to the program coordinator. I explained the situation honestly, not every ugly detail, but enough to show the truth. I told her my passport had been stolen, that I had proof, and that I still wanted to be considered when the next cycle opened. I didn't expect a response. But the following Monday, she wrote back. "Hannah, thank you for your honesty. I'm so sorry this happened to you. We cannot reverse the missed interview, but I can guarantee you an interview spot for the next cycle," without reapplying. I stared at the words through tears. It wasn't everything, but it was hope. When my parents heard, they were overjoyed. My mom hugged me so tightly I could hardly breathe. "See? This isn't the end. You'll get there." But Madison only sneered when she overheard. "Oh, great. Another 6 months of listening to you talk about your precious overseas job." This time, though, her words didn't cut as deep. Because I realized something. Her cruelty didn't come from strength. It came from fear. Fear of being forgotten, left behind, erased by my success. And no matter how much she tried to pull me down into her pit, I didn't have to stay there with her. But deep down, I knew one thing. 6 months was a long time. And in 6 months, she might try again. Which meant, if I wanted to reclaim my future, I would have to be ready. Not just to rise, but to protect myself from the sister who had already proven how far she would go to tear me down. The email from the coordinator gave me something I hadn't felt since the morning of the interview. Hope. It was like being thrown a life vest after nearly drowning. But along with hope came something else, a gnawing awareness that I was still living under the same roof as the person who had sabotaged me. And if she had done it once, what was stopping her from doing it again? For weeks, I lived with a constant edge in my chest, a tension that never quite loosened. Every time Madison passed me in the hallway, every time I heard her laughing in the kitchen, every time I saw her car in the driveway, it was a reminder. She had already taken something from me once, and she could do it again. I started keeping my passport in a locked box under my bed. I even bought a small fireproof safe, the kind most people used for birth certificates or savings bonds. It felt ridiculous, hiding something so ordinary in a fortress. But in my house with my sister, it was necessary. My parents were still furious with her, but they had softened after weeks of silence and Madison's occasional half-hearted gestures, like helping with groceries or asking Dad about his work. They wanted to believe she was remorseful. I knew better. I had seen her eyes the morning I accused her. She wasn't sorry. She was only sorry she'd been caught. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard her voice drift through the bathroom wall. She was on the phone, her tone low and conspiratorial. "No, she doesn't know. She'll never make it, trust me. I'll make sure of it." I froze, my toothbrush halfway to my mouth. My stomach twisted. Was she talking about me? I pressed my ear to the wall, but her voice lowered further, muffled, until I could only catch fragments. "Not leaving me behind. She thinks she's better. Yeah, I'll handle it." That night, I couldn't sleep. The words echoed in my head like a drumbeat. "I'll make sure of it." By the time spring came, I was already preparing for round 2. I rewrote my resume, sharpened my answers to interview questions, read every book and article I could find about international work. But this time, my preparation wasn't only academic. It was personal. I wasn't just preparing to succeed. I was preparing to defend my success from the person who wanted to destroy it. When my parents asked me how I was doing, I smiled and told them I was fine. But inside, I was building walls. Madison thought she had power over me because she knew how much I wanted this job. But I wasn't going to let her hold that power anymore. I changed all the locks on my personal drawers. I set up 2 separate hiding places for important documents, one decoy and one real. I even scanned my passport and sent digital copies to the program coordinator with an explanation, in case anything happened again. It felt exhausting, living like that. Like I was in a constant chess game with my own sister, always anticipating her next move. But it also gave me strength. For the first time, I realized I wasn't powerless. I could protect myself. Then one evening in May, Madison cornered me in the kitchen. "You're really going to try again?" she asked, her tone dripping with disbelief. "Yes," I said flatly, not even looking up from the sink. Her laugh was sharp and cruel. "God, Hannah, don't you ever get tired? You already lost. Why humiliate yourself twice?" I spun around, my hands gripping the counter. "I didn't lose, Madison. You made me lose. But that's not the same thing. And this time, you don't get to decide." For the first time, I saw her falter. Her mouth opened, then shut again, like she hadn't expected me to push back. Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're stronger than me?" I held her gaze, steady and unflinching.
No.
"I know I am." She flinched, just barely, before storming out of the room. From that night forward, something changed between us. She stopped pretending around our parents, stopped trying to play the role of the misunderstood sister. Instead, she grew colder, quieter, like a storm brewing out of sight. But I didn't cower anymore. For the first time in months, I felt taller, stronger. Still, the paranoia lingered. When the official email came with my new interview date, 6 months after the first one, I didn't even tell Madison. I kept it between myself and my parents, who agreed not to mention it in front of her. It felt wrong, hiding something so big from my own sister. But after what she'd done, I couldn't risk it. I counted down the days, every morning marking one off the calendar. Each X felt like a step closer to redemption, a step closer to taking back what she had stolen from me. 1 week before the interview, I caught her in my room. I came home from work early, stepping into the house with a bag of groceries, and froze when I heard rustling upstairs. My parents weren't home. The sound came from my room. I dropped the groceries on the counter and sprinted upstairs, my heart pounding. There she was, standing at my desk, my drawers open, papers scattered. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. She spun around, her face pale, caught like a thief, which is exactly what she was. I was just what? Stealing from me again. Her eyes darted to the drawer where my passport should have been. But it wasn't there. It was in the safe under my bed. My fury exploded. "Do you know what you've done to me already? Do you even care?" Her lip curled. "You think you're so untouchable now, don't you? Like you can outsmart me." I stepped closer, my voice shaking but firm. "No, Madison. Not untouchable. Just not yours to destroy anymore." For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the air heavy with all the years of resentment, envy, and broken trust. Then she shoved past me, muttering under her breath, "We'll see about that." That night, I sat on my bed, my passport safe at my feet, and made a promise to myself. If she tried again, I wouldn't just protect myself. I would expose her. She had taken enough from me. She had stolen my chance, my peace, my trust. But she wasn't going to steal my future again. And when the day of the interview came, I would be ready, not just to fight for my dream, but to finally stand up against the sister who had betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. The morning of my rescheduled interview arrived like the slow build of a storm. I had barely slept the night before, my mind racing with every possible way Madison could try to sabotage me. I kept replaying that scene of finding her in my room, her guilty face, the venom in her voice. We'll see about that. But this time, I was ready. I had triple-checked the contents of my bag. Passport, folder, printed resume, letters of recommendation, travel itinerary. I even packed a second copy of everything and gave it to my parents for safekeeping. If Madison managed to get into my things again, she wouldn't win. My interview was in another city, a 2-hour train ride away. I left the house at dawn, my suitcase by my side, and didn't even tell Madison I was leaving. My parents hugged me tight, their eyes full of pride and worry. My mom whispered, "You've got this. Don't let her haunt you." But as I stepped onto the platform, I saw her, Madison, leaning casually against a pillar, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. My stomach dropped. How had she known? She smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't warmth but challenge. Heading somewhere? I clutched my bag tighter. "Stay out of my way." She stepped forward, blocking my path. "Relax, Hannah. I'm not here to steal your passport again. That trick's old now." "Then why are you here?" I snapped. Her smile widened. "To remind you that no matter where you go, you can't outrun me. You think moving overseas makes you better, makes you free? You'll always have me in your shadow." The train whistle blew. My chest was tight, but I forced myself to push past her. "No, Madison. Not my shadow. My past. And that's where you're staying." Her laugh followed me as I boarded, but for the first time, it didn't sink its claws into me. On the train, I pressed my forehead against the glass, watching the scenery blur by. My hands shook, but not from fear anymore. From adrenaline. From the sheer effort it took not to collapse under the weight of her cruelty. I thought about every moment she had stolen from me. Every hour of preparation wasted because of her. Every night I had cried myself to sleep, wondering why my own sister hated me enough to tear me down. And I realized something. She wanted me broken because it made her feel whole. She wanted me small because it made her feel big. I had spent months carrying her betrayal like a stone around my neck. But today, as the train carried me toward the chance she had tried to take, I decided to put it down. She didn't own me anymore. The interview building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel. As I walked inside, clutching my folder, the nerves hit like a tidal wave. But beneath them was steel, too. The kind forged in fire, the kind that betrayal shapes without mercy. I signed in at the front desk, my voice steady. The receptionist smiled and handed me a visitor's badge. "Good luck," she said warmly. "Thank you," I whispered, meaning it with all my heart. In the waiting room, I sat with 3 other candidates, all polished and confident. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if I don't belong here? What if Madison was right? But then I pulled out my passport, ran my fingers over the embossed seal, and remembered. I had earned this. I had clawed my way here, even when my own family tried to drag me down. If I belonged anywhere, it was here. When they finally called my name, I rose with my head high. The panel of interviewers was sharp-eyed but kind, their questions probing but fair. They asked about my experience, my goals, how I would handle challenges abroad. My answers flowed, not rehearsed, but real, drawn from every late night, every book, every sacrifice. At the end, they asked me to verify my eligibility. I slid my passport across the table with hands that no longer trembled. One of them glanced up at me, smiling. "Everything looks perfect. Thank you, Hannah." Perfect. A word I had hated growing up because it was always used as a weapon against me, something I supposedly had that Madison didn't. But in this moment, hearing it from them, it wasn't a weapon. It was a validation. The interview ended with polite smiles and handshakes, but as I stepped out of the room, I knew in my gut I had nailed it. On the train ride back, exhaustion washed over me. For the first time in months, I let myself breathe. I leaned back in my seat, eyes closed, a small smile tugging at my lips. And then my phone buzzed. A text. From Madison. "So, did they buy it?" My blood went cold. "Buy what?" I typed back, my hands shaking. Her reply came instantly. "That you're the perfect little angel. Don't worry, I'll be here when it all falls apart." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. For a long time, I thought revenge meant destroying her the way she had destroyed me. But in that moment, I realized the truth. Revenge wasn't proving her wrong to her face. It was succeeding anyway. It was living the life she swore I couldn't have. It was becoming untouchable not because she couldn't try again, but because I wouldn't let her matter anymore. When I got home that evening, my parents were waiting anxiously. "How did it go?" my mom asked, her hands clasped like she was holding her breath. I smiled through tears. I think it went really well." They hugged me, relief pouring out of them. But Madison wasn't there. She had disappeared for the night, maybe to sulk, maybe to plot. And for the first time, I didn't care. Because whatever she did, however she tried to break me, I had already learned the lesson she never expected me to. She could only take my future if I gave her the power. And I was done giving it. That night, as I locked my passport back in its safe, I whispered to myself, "This time, no one steals it. This time, no one steals me." And deep down, I knew, whether I got the job or not, I had already won. The week after the interview stretched on like an eternity. Every morning I woke up half expecting an email. Every evening I checked my inbox until my eyes blurred. My nerves hummed constantly, not just from the waiting, but from living under the same roof as Madison. She hadn't asked me how it went. She didn't need to. Her smirk whenever we crossed paths told me she was already certain I'd fail. Sometimes she muttered things under her breath, "Waste of time," or "They'll see through you." Other times, she'd just glance at me with that smug expression that made me want to scream. But I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't give her the satisfaction of knowing she could still rattle me. Instead, I poured myself into the waiting. I volunteered for extra shifts at work, went on long walks with my mom, helped my dad with projects around the house. Anything to fill the hours until my future revealed itself. One evening, about a week later, I came home from work to find Madison in the kitchen with my parents. Their voices were hushed, but as soon as I stepped inside, the air shifted. "What's going on?" I asked, setting my bag down. My mom's eyes darted to my dad, then to Madison, then back to me. "Your sister has something she wants to say." Madison leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, her eyes rolling. "Oh, God. Don't make it sound so dramatic." "Madison," my dad said firmly. She sighed heavily.
Fine.
"Look, Hannah. Maybe I overreacted before. Maybe I shouldn't have taken your passport. Whatever. I'm sorry." Her words dripped with insincerity, her gaze never once meeting mine. I stared at her, my chest tight. "You're not sorry. You're only saying this because Mom and Dad told you to." She smirked. "So? Isn't that what you wanted, to hear me say the words?" My voice shook, but not with weakness, with fury I'd kept bottled for months. "No, Madison. What I wanted was for you to be a sister.
To be happy for me.
To not destroy the one thing I've worked for my entire life." But clearly, that was too much to ask. The room went silent. My parents looked devastated, torn between us. But I didn't stay to see their reactions. I walked out, my hands trembling, my heart pounding in my throat. Because I realized then, whether I got the job or not, Madison and I were no longer sisters in any way that mattered. 2 days later, the email arrived. I was at work, shelving books in the back room of the library when my phone buzzed. My breath caught when I saw the subject line, "Final interview results." My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. I closed my eyes for a moment, whispered a prayer, then opened it. "Dear Hannah Collins, we are delighted to inform you that you have successfully passed the final interview stage. We would like to formally offer you the position in our Europe office, starting this fall." My knees buckled. I slid down onto the floor, clutching the phone to my chest, tears spilling freely down my face. After everything, after the sabotage, the stolen passport, the humiliation, I had done it. I had won. When I told my parents that evening, they both cried. My mom hugged me so tightly I thought my ribs might crack. My dad clapped my shoulder with pride. "We knew you'd do it," he said softly. Madison wasn't in the room. Later, when she finally came downstairs, I was still glowing, my eyes still puffy from happy tears. She glanced at me, then at our parents, who were still buzzing with excitement. "What's going on?" she asked flatly. "Hannah got the job," my mom said, her voice trembling with joy. For a split second, I saw something flash in Madison's eyes. Shock, maybe even fear. But then it hardened into a glare. "Of course she did," she muttered. "Because everything always works out for Hannah." She stormed off before anyone could respond. I didn't chase her. For once, I didn't need her acknowledgement. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into preparing for the move. Paperwork, logistics, saying goodbye to friends. It was overwhelming, but it was the kind of overwhelming I had prayed for. Every time I packed a box, I felt lighter, freer, like I was slowly shedding the weight of Madison's poison. But she didn't let up. If anything, her bitterness grew sharper. She made snide comments at dinner, slammed doors, left passive-aggressive notes about chores. Once, she even accidentally spilled coffee across my folder of travel documents. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the mess, and something inside me shifted. I realized Madison wasn't just jealous. She was terrified. Because the moment I boarded that plane, she would lose her favorite target. Without me here to knock down, who would she be? And that was when I decided. I wasn't going to leave quietly. Not this time. The day my official offer letter arrived in the mail, I placed it carefully in the center of the dining table. Madison came in a few minutes later, yawning, coffee mug in hand. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up. I leaned against the doorway, my arms crossed. "It's proof. Proof that you couldn't stop me. That you never will." Her face twisted. "God, you're insufferable." "No," I said firmly, stepping closer. "I'm unstoppable. And you hate me for it, but that's not my problem anymore. You tried to ruin me, Madison. You stole from me, lied to me, humiliated me, but I still won." She slammed the letter down, her hands shaking. "Don't think this makes you better than me." "I don't need to be better than you," I said quietly. "I just need to be free of you." For the first time, I saw tears in her eyes. But I didn't flinch. I didn't comfort her. Because I had learned the hardest, clearest truth of all. Love without respect is nothing. And family without trust is poison. That night, as I zipped my suitcase, I thought about everything I had endured. The girl who cried on her bedroom floor, devastated and broken, wasn't the same girl who was about to leave. I had been forged in betrayal, and instead of shattering, I had become something stronger. Madison could keep her bitterness. I had a future, and in just a few weeks, I'd be gone. The final week before my departure arrived like a storm, and a sunrise rolled into one. My suitcase sat open on the bed, half filled with neatly folded clothes, my documents tucked safely inside a leather folder, zipped and double-checked 100 times. Every detail was planned, every list crossed off. And yet, my chest felt tight. Not from fear of leaving, but from the weight of what I was leaving behind. Madison had been quieter in the days since I received the offer letter. Quieter but not kinder. It was the kind of silence that carries a charge, like the air before lightning strikes. I avoided her when I could, focusing instead on soaking up my last weeks with my parents. We had dinners together, watched old family movies, even went on a small hike like we used to when I was a kid. I wanted those memories with me, not the ones of slammed doors and stolen passports. But the night before my flight, Madison finally broke her silence. I was in my room, zipping the last of my bags, when she appeared in the doorway. She leaned against the frame like she had the morning of my first missed interview, her expression unreadable. "So," she said slowly, "you're really going?" I didn't look up from my suitcase. "Yes." "You're just going to leave everything behind?" "Leave me behind." I paused, my hands resting on the zipper. "Madison, I'm not leaving you. I'm choosing myself. There's a difference." Her laugh was sharp, bitter. "Always the saint, aren't you? Always with the perfect answer. You know what?
Go.
Run off to your shiny new life. But don't pretend it doesn't make you selfish." I turned then, meeting her eyes. "Selfish would have been giving up everything I worked for just to make you feel better. Selfish is stealing your sister's passport because you can't stand her success. Leaving for this job? That's survival. For the first time in months, she didn't have a comeback. She just stared at me, her face pale, her jaw tight. Then, without another word, she turned and left. The silence she left behind felt final. The next morning was chaos. Coffee brewing, bags loaded. My mom fussing over whether I'd packed enough socks. My dad triple-checked the flight details while I laughed through tears. The excitement and fear tangled together in my chest, but it was the good kind of fear, the kind that comes when you're standing at the edge of something big. And then Madison appeared. She stood at the foot of the stairs, her arms crossed, watching as my parents bustled around me. For a moment, I thought she'd stay silent. But then she walked forward, her step slow, almost hesitant. "Here," she muttered, holding something out. It was a small silver key. I frowned. "What's this?" Her eyes flicked away. "The key to that stupid safe under your bed. You won't need it where you're going." For a heartbeat, I didn't know what to say. It wasn't an apology, not really. But it was something. A gesture, a thread of surrender. I took it gently. "Thanks." She nodded stiffly, her face unreadable. Then she turned and walked out the front door, the sound of it slamming echoing through the house. I didn't chase her. I couldn't. Some wounds can't be stitched shut in a day. Maybe never. At the airport, as I hugged my parents goodbye, I felt the tears sting again. My mom cupped my face, her hands trembling. "We're so proud of you, Hannah. Don't ever forget that." My dad's hug was fierce, his voice rough. "Go show them what you're made of." I smiled through the tears, clutching my passport so tightly my knuckles turned white. This time, it wasn't just a document. It was proof. Proof that I had survived betrayal. Proof that I had fought back without becoming bitter. Proof that I had chosen myself. As I walked toward security, I felt lighter than I had in years. The flight was long, the hum of the engines a constant lullaby, but my mind was wide awake. I thought about the girl who had cried on the bedroom floor months earlier, destroyed by her sister's betrayal. And I thought about the woman now, staring out the airplane window at a sunrise over the ocean. Same person, different strength. Madison would always be a part of my story, but she no longer defined it. Her betrayal had scarred me, yes. But it had also sharpened me, taught me resilience I never knew I had. And in some strange, painful way, I realized I was grateful. Not for what she did, I would never forgive that, but for what I discovered in myself because of it. When the plane landed, I stepped onto foreign soil with a heart pounding not from fear, but from possibility. The world stretched wide before me, untainted by Madison's bitterness, untouched by her sabotage. I whispered to myself as I adjusted the strap of my bag, "This is mine. Finally mine." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.